Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver here on a 2019 Lincoln Nautilus. So this here is what our trailer hitch is going to look like installed on our vehicle. Now the trailer hitch has a hidden cross tube design, meaning everything is going to be tucked up behind the bumper here. The only thing we can see is the receiver tube. This is going to make for the best possible ground clearance. It's also going to make for the best overall appearance. Now our trailer hitch does have a black powder coated finish, which is going to help protect the hitch from rust and corrosion over time. So adding a trailer hitch to your Nautilus, it's going to be an excellent idea because it's going to make your vehicle that much more versatile. Now, in addition to towing, we can also use the trailer hitch to free up some space inside the vehicle for us and the family on those long road trips, or we could use it to hit the trails using either a hitch-mounted bike rack or hitch-mounted cargo carrier. Now, our trailer hitch does have an industry standard 2-inch by 2-inch opening, which is going to be the most widely compatible with all of our bike racks, hitch-mounted accessories like cargo carriers and ball mounts. On the side of our receiver tube, we're going to have an industry standard 5/8 inch diameter hitch pin hole. It's going to work great with our industry standard 5/8 inch diameter hitch pin and clip. Keep in mind the hitch pin and clip does not come with a trailer hitch, and the reason for that is a lot of your accessories like your ball mounts, bike racks, cargo carriers are actually going to come with their own, so you shouldn't need to worry about buying this separately, but if you do need one, we have plenty of options here at eTrailer. And then on the bottom of our receiver, we're going to have our safety chain loops. Those are going to work great with both the larger clevis style as well as the smaller S-type. So I've got a couple measurements for you now. They're going to help you when you're selecting your hitch mounted accessories. The first one is the distance from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube. You're looking at about 12.5 inches. And that's useful so you can select a ball mount. That way you can make sure you get the correct rise and drop to tow your trailer level. And then we have the distance from the center of the hitch pin hole to the outside edge of the bumper. This one you're looking at about 5.5 inches, and that's going to be useful when you're selecting those folding accessories. That way you can make sure that while they're in the stowed position, they don't hit the vehicle. In regards to installation, this one really isn't that bad. The instructions are going to tell you to take the rear bumper off, but we'll actually show you a shortcut around that to make things a little bit easier for you. You can definitely do this on the ground. You don't have to raise it in the air. Just common tools are going to be required. There is one you're going to need that you might not have. That's a torque wrench. You can actually rent this for free though from most local auto parts stores. I would give yourselves around 1 to 2 hours depending on your experience level, and there are a couple steps where you could definitely use an extra set of hands. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and walk you through the entire process step by step now. So the first step of our installation, we need to remove the side panels underneath the vehicle on either side. Now these are held in place with 4 fasteners. We're going to have 2 screws at the bottom and 2 flange nuts at the top. These 2 screws at the bottom we remove with a 5.5 millimeter socket. So once we got the 2 out in the bottom, we're going to switch over to a deep well 10 millimeter socket. We're going to remove the flange nuts at the top. So now that we have all the hardware out, there is a push pin fastener we have to remove on the inside of the wheel well here. So just go ahead, take a flathead screwdriver, pry that center section out, and then the rest should come out with it. Then we can just pull our panel down and out of position. Once we get this side out, do that same thing on the other side. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be lowering our exhaust here. Now in the instructions, they do recommend for Lincoln models that we actually remove the bumper fascia to get the hitch in place. But I've installed this same hitch on the Nautilus here a couple times, and I've been able to successfully do that without removing the bumper. So if you guys want to save a little bit extra work, we'll go ahead and show you how. So we're first going to start by supporting the exhaust. I'm just going to take a cam buckle strap here, hook it on to 2 points on the frame or the suspension, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to pull it tight on the bottom of our exhaust here. Next, I'm going to take a silicone spray and I'm going to spray down our hangers. We're going to have 1 on each side. So we're going to be removing the metal hanger from the rubber isolator. So just go ahead and spray those down now. So to remove the hanger from the isolator, there's a couple different tools that you can do. You can take an exhaust hanger removal tool, which is this one here. And these kind of work by just prying it out like so. These will work to get it most of the way out, and then the other tool you can use is an actual pry bar here. You'll just sort of wedge it against 2 points on the vehicle to pry that off. Just like that. So we've got this one side over, we need to go to the other side and do the same thing. So now I do recommend an extra set of hands for this next step because it's a little bit more challenging. As we said, we're trying to get around not taking off the bumper. In order to do this, you're going to have somebody pull out here on the bottom edge of the bumper fascia, and the other person is going to be shifting the tailpipe back and forth to remove it from this cutout here. So again, an extra set of hands is certainly going to make this a lot easier. You are going to have to put a good amount of force here on the bottom of the fascia there, but just take your time and you shouldn't cause any damage, and you should be able to get the tailpipe out of the cutout. So you can see we got our exhaust underneath the bumper here, and all we did is I had one person pulling out on the bottom and the other person pulling down on the exhaust. It does take a little bit of force, but just take your time there, be careful, and once you get both sides out here, we can proceed to the next step. Now the next thing we're going to be doing is there's going to be a stud directly in the center of the vehicle behind the bumper on the body there, so we're just going to take a Dremel tool and cut that off. So now we're ready to install some hardware into the frame underneath. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and recommend some safety glasses. You'll be working with these fish wires here. The end of these are pretty sharp and they're springy, so you don't want those to poke you in the eye. Make sure you got some safety glasses on. Now we're going to show you one of these, and then it's going to be the same on the rest of these 7 bolts, because there's going to be 4 on each side, 2 on the bottom of the frame, and then 2 on the outside of the frame. But we're going to go ahead and show you how to get the hardware in there now. So underneath the frame, we're going to have an access hole here, and we're going to have an attachment hole here and here. Now you can't see them, but on the other side of the frame, directly in line with these holes, we're going to have 2 more holes. So what we're going to do is we're going to be taking our coiled fish wire here. I'm going to stick the coiled end through the hole that we want the bolt to come out of, and then I'm going to be fishing it out of the access hole. So that one's a pretty sharp bend there, so I'm just actually going to pre-bend the fish wire to make it a little bit easier to get out. There we go. Now I'm going to take a spacer block, place that hole through the coiled end, and then I'm going to throw the coiled end back up through the access hole into the frame. And then I'm going to thread on our carriage bolt. I'll grab the other end of our fish wire and I'll begin pulling that through the access hole and down through the hole in our frame, just like so. So we've got this one done. We're going to repeat this process for our other 7 holes. So with an extra set of hands, we can go ahead and lift our hitch into position. Now keep in mind, your 2 bolts on the side there, you need to push those back up into the frame because you won't be able to lift everything up with those in place. So now that we have all of our fish wires pulled through, all the bolts are through the holes there holding the hitch into place, we'll go ahead and start attaching all of our flange nuts. So keep in mind, we're going to have 3 flange nuts per side, 2 on the side and 1 back here. The hole closest to the rear of the bumper there, we won't be using a flange nut, we'll be using a different kind of nut. So we'll go ahead and pull this fish wire off there. And we're actually going to be attaching this using just a standard hex nut, but we are going to have a split lock washer that we're going to place over there first. It is kind of tight there because you have the hitch flange working against you. Just go ahead and get that on there, and then we'll begin threading on our hex nut. So we need to do this on both sides, and once we get it all on there, we'll come back with an 11/16 inch socket. We'll snug everything up. So now we're going to come back with our torque wrench here and torque everything down to spec. So now that we have the hitch installed and torqued down, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and raise our exhaust back up into position. Now this is going to be pretty difficult, about the same difficulty as removing it before. We're going to have someone pull out on the bottom of the bumper, and the other person can kind of maneuver the hitch into place. Now you can sort of rotate it back side to side there to give you a little bit more wiggle room to get it up in there. It is challenging, but again, this is all in the name of skipping the step of removing the bumper. Now, in order to reinstall our bottom panels, we do need to do some small modifications. We actually just need to trim out this little circular ring that hangs down. That way one of our bolts can protrude through that. You can either drill a hole in the center of it, or you can just cut it off entirely there. We're going to be using a Dremel tool and just cutting it off on the outside. And now with both of our side panels installed, that's going to do it today for our look and installation of the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver here on our 2019 Lincoln Nautilus.